Good afternoon, friends. Today, we are proud to share with you about the Supreme Court decision on the mandatory pre deposit, which can be paid through the input tax credit or the credit ledger. The controversy while filing these appeals, which would be relevant to all of the appeals which are filed throughout the country, and there could be lakhs of such appeals, is whether input tax credit or the credit ledger could be used to make the payment of that mandatory pre deposit. Today morning, the matter was argued by us before the Honorable Supreme Court, wherein Supreme Court addressed this issue and very categorically dismissed the SLP of the revenue which was filed subsequent to the favorable order which we had received from Gujarat High Court. Supreme Court has categorically held that the electronic credit ledger can be used for making this mandatory pre deposit for filing an appeal. This will be a very interesting and a landmark decision which will help millions of taxpayers who are now required for some issue or the other to file an appeal before the appellate level or the GST tribunal, which will be formed. So, in terms of implications, before we go to the technical aspects of it, all appeals which would now be filed, the appellants can take the benefit of this decision of the Supreme Court in our case, which we argued today morning. Secondly, we must understand that a lot of these times the litigation is also going with respect to these exporters who are exporting goods or services. And when this litigation happens, they may face a bigger problem because a lot of these benefits are given for the exporters for their benefits so that there is no cash blockage. So this Supreme Court decision will also significantly help the exporters, where the objective of the government of India is very clearly to provide all measures so that we can compete with other countries in the most pragmatic way. So cash blocking is also addressed to a very large extent. Now let's just go to some of these technical provisions. As per the provisions of section 107 subsection 6, it says that no appeal shall be filed under subsection 1 unless the appellant has paid. And it says the B clause says a sum equal to 10% of the remaining amount of tax in dispute arising from the said order in relation to which the appeal has been filed. So the controversy was whether this amount of mandatory pre-deposit which has to be paid, you would be required to pay it only by the cash ledger, or can you use your electronic credit ledger as well? To which Supreme Court very categorically today said that electronic credit ledger can be used. Supreme Court has also documented in its order the pending matters with respect to Flipkart and couple of other taxpayers which were pending before the Supreme Court, and these are still pending before the Supreme Court. But Supreme Court, after they heard our arguments at length, including the relevance of 9610, and that 9610 rule has been deleted with effect from the year 2024, was of the very clear view that this benefit must be given to the taxpayers. It will make the appeal process easier. It was very categorically told by the Supreme Court in the open court that this money in any case is with the authorities and this is being used for filing of appeals. So 107 subsection 6 is relevant. What is also relevant is for us to see 49 subsection 4. So it says that the amount available in the electronic credit ledger may be used for making any payment. The word any payment is important, and it says that the amount available in the electronic credit ledger may be used for making any payment towards output tax. Now, it doesn't say the 49(4) doesn't say that to pay output tax. It is categorically saying for making any payment towards output tax. If the intention of the legislature was only for it, for the electronic credit ledger to be used only for the output tax, it could have easily written for payment of output tax. But what is written is for making any payment towards output tax. So, with that reference, there is a difference between the paid versus the deposit, which we have always been highlighting before courts. It is also important to make a reference to Rule 86, Sub Rule 2, which deals with electronic credit ledger. And how this rule deals is that the electronic credit ledger shall be debited to the extent of discharge of any liability in accordance with the provisions of Section 49. And I had taken you to Section 49. Now, when we read the rule in synchronization with the statutory provision, it and the rule also says that you have to read it in accordance with Section 49. What rule says is the electronic credit ledger shall be debited to the extent of discharge of any liability. The word which is there in the rule is with respect to any liability. And if we now go to Section 49, subsection 4, subsection 4 says the amount available in the electronic credit ledger may be used for making any payment towards output tax. It doesn't say to pay output tax, it says making any payment towards output tax. Which brings us to the circular which has been issued. This is circular 172, which is dated 6th of July 2022. This could be relevant as well. And if we go to paragraph 6 of the circular, paragraph 6 of the circular very clearly deals with the utilizations of the amount available in the electronic credit ledger and the electronic cash ledger for payment of tax and other liabilities. So if we see the response, paragraph 2 under the category 6, it says sub rule 2 of rule 86 of the CGST rules provides for debiting of the electronic credit ledger to the extent of discharge of any liability in accordance with the provisions of Section 49 or 49A or 49B of the CGST Act. Now, in paragraph 4, it concludes that accordingly it is clarified that any payment towards output liability, here also it says any payment towards output liability. It does not say any payment for output liability or any payment to make the payment of output. Any payment towards output liability is a wider phrase, whether self-assessed in the form of return, etc., etc., and then this goes on. So, paragraph 7 is also relevant because the revenue would at any stage would have taken the benefit out of para 7, but we need to read para 7 in synchronization with para 6. And what paragraph 7 says is whether the amount available in the electronic credit ledger can be used for making payment of any liability other than tax under the GST law. And what it says is, as per subsection 4 of Section 49, the electronic credit ledger can be used for making payment of output tax only under the CGST Act or the IGST Act. It cannot be used for making payment of any interest, penalty, fees, or any other amount payable under the said acts. But where are we saying that we are following under this? This is the element of pre-deposit which needs to be paid and not any one of these items. How it reads further is, similarly, electronic credit ledger cannot be used for payment of erroneous refund sanctioned to the taxpayer where such refund was sanctioned in cash. Now the issue is when even these exporters, in this case or several other cases, when they are going in appeal, what is being paid is the mandatory pre-deposit. And if these are exporters and the benefit which must go to the exporters is with respect to the working capital, cash blockage, etc., I think the law is very clear. The circular is also trying to clarify that. Above all, how it helps is that millions of taxpayers who would be filing appeals now before the GST tribunal, which will come into play very soon, and the commissioner appeal level will take the benefit of today's decision of the Supreme Court. And we are grateful to the Supreme Court to hear it at length today morning and pass this order. Supreme Court, I am again repeating, took into cognizance, which will be part of the order, about the pending matters with respect to Flipkart and couple of other taxpayers. But Supreme Court has today passed this order, and the benefit must come with respect to the mandatory pre-deposit. Now, what happens in those cases where the assessee was trying to make the mandatory pre-deposit by way of credit ledger, and the appellate authorities have not accepted that, including the tribunal? uh, Writ petition must be filed where the amount has been paid in cash, that you could ask for refund and then use your credit with respect to making of that payment. It may not be easy, but you will have to write to the tax authorities. You will have to tell to the tax authorities that this decision of the Supreme Court is very, very relevant, very, very pragmatic to the facts and the situation of the appellants in different case. And such appeals could now get the benefit. If they have already paid by cash, then they can also go and pray and ask that we must get the benefit of this decision, get your cash refunded and pay that through the electronic credit ledger. In a lot of situations, it is also possible that you may be in the process of filing the appeal either to the appellate level or to the tribunal level. There is a circular which also says that you will have to make the payment of the pre-deposit so as to show your intention that you will be filing an appeal, which is as good as stay. Now you could get that stay by making this mandatory pre-deposit on payment through the electronic credit ledger. In some exceptional and rare circumstances, there could also be a case where this mandatory pre-deposit may be a subject matter of dispute as well. Please understand that the Constitution of India provides that every citizen or every company has a right to litigate, has a right to file an appeal. If mandatory pre-deposit comes into the way of my right which Constitution provides to me, in some rare and exceptional circumstances, there could also be a situation wherein the provision of mandatory pre-deposit per se will have to be also argued before respective honorable courts. But this decision of Supreme Court today will help millions of those taxpayers who are in the process of filing appeal or who have already filed appeal. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel for regular updates. Your like and subscribe will really help us to reach out to large number of our participant audience. Thank you. Have a great day.